In this episode of the Omega Podcast, meet Tony Bond, the driving force behind innovation at Great Place to Work. As the Chief Impact Officer, he ensures our culture transformation model evolves with the latest insights. Discover how Tony's leadership is shaping the future of work.
Welcome to the Omega Podcast with Tony Bond, the Chief Impact Officer at Great Place to Work. It is such an incredible honor and privilege to have you on the podcast, Tony.
Thank you so much, Keenan. It's a pleasure. Looking forward to this conversation.
Fantastic. I know we have a lot to uncover and unravel, especially when it comes to what's changing in the workplace of tomorrow, the future of work. But to start our conversation off, that title, Chief Impact Officer, can you share with our listeners your role and the impact that you drive at Great Place to Work?
Sure, happy to. So our mission has been for over 30 years to create a great place to work for everyone, regardless of where you are. As Chief Impact Officer, most of my day-to-day activity is working with C-suite executives on how do you make that a reality? And so how do you create these environments for people where they can truly flourish? And so the impact also comes into, I have a previous background into some sustainability consulting world, so ESG. So I also look for ways that our work overlaps or connects with things like the environmental social governance work, especially the S part of ESG, as well as you think in terms of some of the newer transitions in technology that's coming out with AI. How is that going to shape the workplace? So it's kind of a variety of things that falls within the role, but the overall objective is to help the C-suite understand how to create these types of environments and how to sustain them and how they connect to driving business impact.
Absolutely. And the fact that you're focusing on the ESG, the S specifically, that social component, it's so crucial because with a day and age with technology, people are losing sight that people are still at the foundation of it all. And oftentimes that can be overlooked. When it comes to key factors that contribute to a company's culture, how can companies proactively build and sustain a positive culture to become a great place to work?
Yeah, I love that question. So the word culture comes up quite a bit. And I think there's like the macro level culture, the organizational culture. But for you and I, or anyone who works in an organization, 80% of our experience is shaped by our leader, our immediate leader. So there's these microcultures across the organization being shaped and driven by individual leaders. And so the way that you become a great place to work is to make sure that each leader, regardless of where this person sits in the organization, understands how to build high levels of trust, understands how to respect and honor people, understands how to develop people. So if you can get all these microcultures aligned well around the overall objective, then that's what shapes the organizational culture. And so the way Great Place to Works are shaped is that you have a consistency of experience. Regardless of who I work for and where I work in the organization, I view my leader as being high trust, creates a great culture of trust. My leader also facilitates collaboration amongst people. And last but not least, I feel like I can be my best in these organizations.
Yeah, that essence of trust, transparency, and honestly, hearing the feedback from your employees as to what needs to be improved. How can they really get to the role or the goals that they have set for themselves within the organization, which I think is going back to culture and really developing that in a way that's going to help so many people. But how can companies effectively listen and act on employee feedback, especially if they hear it from high-performing employees to low-performing employees? It's honestly like it can be very convoluted what companies need to improve upon when they're hearing it from different types of folks.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I think it all starts with having a conversation on a regular basis. It needs to be systematic and ongoing, collecting feedback. And so we have a feedback mechanism or a tool that we use, which is called Emprising, but you can survey your employees through a number of different organizations. So the first and foremost thing is to collect the feedback and get it from everyone. And then from there, you have to sort of do some sense making because there's no way that you can address every single thing that comes back through employee engagement surveys. But where's most of the energy in the system? Where are a lot of the people bringing up topics that are pretty consistent? That's a great place to start. And so I let people know that I want their feedback. I value their feedback. We're going to work together on actually survey the employees. The results come back. I want to thank them for that feedback they're giving us. and then get the executive team to really understand where's the energy in the system that will allow us to deepen the conversation with people. So survey results by themselves doesn't really give you all the answers. I think it goes from pointing you in the right direction to having more verbal conversations with people as a follow-up to really get to the source of what would create the biggest impact for people here at this workplace. And then you just do that on a regular basis. So I find one or two things this year, next year, maybe one or two different things. I continuously chip at these things. Before you know it, you really shape the whole culture in the direction that you really want it to be.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that you mentioned the employee surveys, because that is the best way to really understand your employees, what their need bases are, and how to really accelerate their growth and the trajectory of the business. But in a day and age with virtual modalities, hybrid modalities, you have in-person office mandates, and it's almost as if every single company has their own mandates regarding their culture, and with the essence of AI playing a significant role, how should companies better approach their employees that are in these different modalities? Because you're not going to necessarily assist one employee that is in the office either different or the same as someone who works from home, of course, right? Because of just their atmosphere, what they do on a day-to-day basis varies. But how can companies sort of look into ways to bring people together, really have that camaraderie, even though you have individuals that are in different office modalities around the globe?
Yeah, that has been an issue. Even before COVID, we had issues when you think in terms of bringing people together, because you have some folks that are working on a shop floor, some people are working night shifts and various things that makes it really difficult to create a collective environment for all those different folks. But I would say in today's world, you have in-person, you have hybrid, you have totally virtual. There's only one person who sits at the center and understands what's happening with all different people, regardless of where they work. And that's me as a leader. So it's almost like I'm managing the chessboard. I know that John works virtually. John is very curious and interested in this type of work. Joe over here, who works in the office, is also interested in this. Is there a way for me to bring them together? Is there a way for me to make connections? And so I have to be a super connector as a leader. See the landscape, know what each person is really aspiring to be and what they want to connect with. And then as best as I can, make those connections for people, because it's very difficult for me as an individual when I'm working from home every single day and I don't have access to what other folks are doing within an office environment. So first and foremost, I think the leader plays a key role in facilitating those conversations. And then we also have organizations over the years that have developed these affinity groups. You can call them employee resource groups or business resource groups. That gives me an opportunity, regardless of where I work, to be a part of a community that connects me with people who are very much interested in similar things that I'm interested in. So you have the leader that can do a lot. You also have these employee resource groups that can be really strong catalysts to bring in community in a very distributed workforce, or a dynamic workforce that seems to be changing and people are all over the place.
It's almost as if the leader has to be very in tune with their workforce in order to have those conversations, to better understand the need bases, the skill sets, and see how those individuals can come and work collaboratively together. But in a day and age with everything changing so rapidly, how does leadership play a role in shaping company culture, especially with what we mentioned earlier, with trying to bring people who are virtual to those that are in the office, to those that might be on paternity leave and they come back to a new culture? It's just so much changing so rapidly. How does leadership shape that?
Yeah, I think it's less about change management today, because change is happening all the time. It's more about change readiness. And how do I make us change ready? It's creating what I mentioned earlier, that high level of trust. It's engaging people in idea sharing. So if I feel like I have an opportunity to bring ideas to the workplace, even if those ideas aren't realized, at least I have a voice into things. So the more that we can get people feeling like they can contribute, and it's a safe space for you to contribute, to share your ideas, I think that's creating change readiness, so that regardless of what comes up next, employees feel nimble, they feel flexible. And typically when I trust my leader, I really appreciate the people I work with, and I feel like I'm being developed individually, I'm more than likely ready for change regardless of what happens and what comes my way. And so I think that's the problem, is the mindset needs to switch now more from change management, because we're really not managing change. But the environment is changing, and how do I nudge people in the direction that they need to head in order to live into this current reality? I think that's a big part of it. So
yeah, it's like anticipating what you believe will be something that will come down the line. I mean, I know for some individuals, they were not expecting COVID-19, and that erupted and changed a lot of
right.
business modalities, and it definitely set a lot of companies back financially. Yeah. But when it comes to failure, right, and setbacks, especially from leadership, it impacts people's career path, their career growth. But what lessons can leaders learn from these particular setbacks and or failures when it comes to company culture? You might have an individual within your body of workforce that's doing extremely well, then all of a sudden they don't do well, they pull back. There's a lot of things that come in, and this can be more of an HR related matter, but it can be very poisonous to the organization, right? How can leaders be aware of that and kind of mitigate that, maybe as you talked about earlier, that change readiness, being abreast with what may be impacted? That's a kind of a full question, but curious to get your take on it.
Yeah, what comes up is the whole idea between fixed mindset and growth mindset. And so I feel like it's always viewed as an individual thing. Either I have a fixed mindset and I believe that all I can do is what I can do and I can't do other things, or I have a growth mindset, which means that anything's possible. All I have to do is learn how to do things. And so it can be translated into an organizational. An organization can have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, same as a team. And so as leaders, we have to make sure that we're leaning towards this growth mindset idea, which is basically we experiment with things, we try things, we learn from failure. We don't say, I can't do it because I've never done it before, but what will it take for me to be able to do it? And so I think that's the key. So we as leaders are facilitators of learning. And when we can always be facilitators of learning, then we're creating a growth mindset and we're helping our organization be ready for change. And it helps offset some of the things that you described. So that's not easy because leaders want to have the right answers. They want the same from their folks. We can be very much risk adverse or not flexible and open to failure, but I think that's a big part of it. So a growth mindset organization is what it's going to take in today's world. Yeah,
definitely a growth mindset is definitely the way to go. And I believe it encourages your constituents to adopt that same mindset in their day-to-day. But companies at large are learning the importance of cross-departmental collaboration and knowledge sharing to prevent workplaces from becoming stagnant. What can you share a few examples from your tenure with working with Fortune 500 brands that has stood out as a way that companies should adopt, or kind of an example for what companies should be striving toward in order to really get the best cross-departmental collaboration and knowledge sharing within their organization?
Yeah. It can be something simple as storytelling. So if an organization, especially an executive, gets up and tells stories of success, but also what contributed to those stories of success and highlight the interaction or the interplay between departments or people within those stories, people remember stories. I can put up slides or data points on collaboration and no one's going to remember it. It'll just go by the wayside. But if I can tell a compelling story, then it sticks and it sticks in people's memories. So I think first and foremost, what are the stories we tell that illustrate success, but also highlight how that success was driven by many, many people in our organization, teamwork across the organization. Those are stories that you will remember for a lifetime. So that, to me, that's one of the tools in a toolbox of a leader that's underutilized but has a huge impact.
Enjoying this episode of the Omega Podcast? We want to hear from you. Please share your thoughts or feedback in the comments. You can also visit omegaconsulting.online for more resources, insights, and industry updates. Let's get back to this executive conversation.
Yeah, sharing those success stories, those case studies, showing the impact that the organization has had in the past with those collaborations is so critical. But as we shift gears in our conversation, because AI, generative AI, agentic AI solutions is extremely a disruptor, especially across different sectors and industries. But pertaining to talent and engagement, how has AI impacted the attraction and retention of top talent?
I don't know if it's really touched. I don't know if it's really done that yet. I think it's attracting talent who have expertise in AI into the organization. But companies are still trying to figure out, to be totally honest with you, regardless of who we talk about, they're trying to figure out how AI is really going to live and breathe within their organizations. And so a lot of these large companies are still at a point where we're trying to create rules of engagement. We're trying to create norms around AI so that we can do it in a safe and productive way. And so I feel like we've just yet touch the impact that AI is going to have in the workplace. There are some tools that HR is using to help source candidates, to help move through resumes a lot easier. But I'm not saying that having any significant impact in changing the dynamics of who's coming into an organization. But it's yet to come. So to answer your question, it will impact, but I don't know if it's doing it yet. People are taking a slow and steady pace when it comes to AI in the workplace. There are some use case examples where a lot of companies are doing task-based analysis, figuring out which jobs have tasks that maybe AI can help us with, and trying to figure out how to go about doing that. But we're in the really early stages. And so there's a lot of AI hype. There's a lot of talk about AI. But if you look at what is it really doing today, it's just at an infancy stage within the workplace.
Right. And I think, as you mentioned, it's going to take some time for this to develop to really see the cost benefit analysis of these AI modules being utilized within organizations. But what I really appreciate that you mentioned, Tony, is how companies are basically developing, and I'm just paraphrasing here, but developing these charts and seeing what roles can be able to leverage AI to help maybe get over a repetitive task or mundane task in this instance. But it goes back to that collaborative aspect, because companies, large enterprises have AI developers, and they may have, data scientists and experts in this particular domain, but they need to collaborate in order to be extremely innovative, to make it practical. How can businesses collaborate with AI developers and experts to drive innovation and develop cutting edge solutions?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we have to look at AI more than just a technical tool or technical impact in the workplace. It's really going to shape the way we work. And so if it's truly shaping the way we work, then not only do you need technical people talking about this, but in the same conversation, you need the chief HR officer. You need the chief equity officer, if there's something like that. You need someone who has expertise in organizational behavior and change. All those folks need to be in the same conversation so that it's not just a technical conversation, but it's more about this is a tool that's going to shape the workplace experience for people. And how do we go about doing that in a way that gives everyone the opportunity to benefit from the technology, that doesn't create any deeper divisions between talent levels or equity in an organization? So that's the approach that organizations should be considering. It's like, who's in the conversation right now when it comes to AI? And if you don't have organizational design people, organizational behavior people in those conversations, then we're missing something.
Yes, you have to have those key players. You said organizational development or organizational behavioral specialists, to name a few. But to think about the future of work, and there's so much being discussed about, VR and, MR, and how people are going to be wearing goggles, and we're going to be touching space, if you will, in order to be in meetings. It's really just out there, what people are testing. I mean, from your predictions, Tony, what do you believe the future of work will be? And it could be across from, the people skills to maybe some of the technical skills that might be needed down the line. You mentioned earlier how leaders are charting and being ready with some of the new changes that will be occurring in the next year or so. What's sort of on your radar?
Yeah, I believe that the makeup of teams in the future, you may have teams that are made up of humans and bots. And so I may have a span of control that maybe isn't all people, but what's missing within my team? Am I missing expertise in a certain area? Am I missing competitive analysis in a certain area? Am I missing the contrarian opinion within my team? And I'm able to fill the gaps and the voids within my team through technology. And so AI will be a big part of it. Also, you think in terms of, I see this today, but there are use cases where you want to retain the best talent, you want to keep people around, but if I do choose to leave, all my knowledge stays within the organization. So you have a digital twin, which is basically allowing people to interact with me long beyond the time that I've left the organization. And it's collected data from all my conversations, all my Slack channel interactions or Teams, emails, presentations. And so basically, me, Tony never leaves the company. I'm there for the long term based on my digital twin. So I feel like you're going to see a lot of ways that technology is complementing what we have to get done as humans. The key will be what's left for us to do. We have to make sure that we're developing people to be as creative as they can be. I think that maybe prompt engineering is a skill that everyone needs to have, because AI is only as good as the prompts that I give it and the things that I ask and how I ask it. So we have to train people to be really good in that area as well. So I'm seeing, I don't really paint a picture. That's just some examples of what I see. It's this collaboration between humans and machines. And it's a beautiful collaboration because we are not replacing, but we're augmenting the things that we do as humans. And there will be some places where jobs will be replaced, but I think for the most part, we can augment what we do, allow us to get to things that we don't even know what we can get to as humans. We have no idea right now because we're kind of caught up in some of the tasks that we always have to do every single day.
Right. And it's so important that you mentioned that some of these responsibilities will be augmented by these bots. And you had mentioned a couple of skill sets regarding prompt engineering and just a little bit of like query design, customer experience interfaces. But when it comes to like a culture, now we have to get back to Great Place to Work a little bit, because if we're talking about cultures and companies being a combination of robots and humans, how does that really come together as a culture that people can say, this is a company I desire to work for? That's the topic.
Right. Yeah. I give you an example. There's a professor at the University of Toronto, I believe, marketing professor, who for years have been using technology, AI, within the classroom. And so if you and I are classmates starting at the same time, we each have our individual agents that's sort of our guide, our teacher, our host for our learning experience. And so that bot interviews me, finds out everything that I'm interested in, helps me design my own journey. Your journey and my journey may be totally different. But the teacher's role is to make sure that I'm enjoying the experience I'm having using this technology. And this person is no longer doing the heavy lifting. And so I feel like the Great Place to Work, the manager's role is going to be to make sure that I am experiencing the world of technology and it's working for me. And so all those things will still be the same. Trust in leadership, pride in the work that I do, enjoying the people that I work with. But now we have an infused environment with technology. I have to make sure that each person is enjoying that experience along the way. So, to tell the truth, for 30 some years, our methodology, I don't think it's going to change as far as what makes a great place to work. It's just the environment will shift a bit. And we have to make sure that the technology is developed in an equitable way, rolled out in an equitable way. People are trained and developed in an equitable way. Those things are going to make it a great place to work in this future environment.
Perfect. Well, we're definitely looking forward to it because it's upon us. But just so we can get a better understanding of you, Tony, because our listeners are fans of yours. They followed your career journey since its inception. Can you sort of share with us how you came to be the Chief Impact Officer at Great Place to Work?
I don't know how far back you want to go. So
as far back as you're willing to go.
Yeah. So I guess my dream my whole life was to be a professional athlete. So that was it. So I played 4 sports in high school. Throughout, I played 1 sport in college. But just like many people who have that dream, different things happen. Injuries as one to sort of derail that career. I had someone who just believed in me and saw some potential, and I had never had a job, no internship, no work experience in my whole life. Never worked a day in my life. But I was able to take all the skills that I've learned from sports and translate those skills into the workplace. And so my initial career was in corporate finance, spent a lot of time in that area, did some mid-career changes around sustainability consulting work. And then eventually I was led to Great Place to Work. And so within Great Place to Work, initially just primarily focused on our consulting work. But over the years, I think like a lot of people, I just see opportunities. And I think that here's the way that I can contribute to the organization and to the world at large if I can move into this particular type of role. So it's almost been a collaboration with my boss and seeing opportunities, matching those opportunities with the skills and competencies that I have and trying to make that fit happen. So just some of my background in sustainability, logical fit with the ESG world. So that's kind of the Chief Impact Officer's role. We see, even though the political environment may not say so, but there's no way we're going to escape thinking about the impact we're having on the environment, on society at large. And so if we spend most of our time at work, why not make that connection and help organizations better understand their role in shaping in the environment and society. And so that brings us kind of here to this Chief Impact Officer's role.
Yeah. Wow. Well, as we wrap up our incredible conversation, Tony, I have one last question for you. And it's related to the work that you do as Chief Impact Officer. Here at Omega Consulting, we are a digital transformation agency. And we get this particular term, digital transformation, that goes around. And many people have different definitions of it. But what does digital transformation mean to you?
What does a digital transformation mean to me? I think of a basic term, because I'm a music enthusiast, analog to digital. And so for a digital transformation, it's moving organizations in a way that maximizes, I would say, data, video. It's kind of a future-proofing thing, because if you move to a digital transformation, then it's creating an imprint through technology that is more impactful and has an even longer lasting impact on the organization. I think that's the whole part around digital transformation.
Amazing.
A lot gets lost in an analog world. So I think for me, that's it. That's what it is.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Any last thoughts or comments that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I would say two things. If you're listening and you are a leader, first of all, thanks for the work that you do, but also recognize that in no greater time in history is that role more important than today. And so people are struggling in many, many ways. Things are moving fast on them within the business world. And so we need leaders who really are stepping up and just embracing the fact that you got into this role for a reason and be the best that you can be. And then for all of us who are depending on leaders, I would say we all share a role. Your voices are important. If employees ask you or employers ask you to give your opinion on surveys or whatever, always do that. Never lose that opportunity or decline that opportunity to give feedback. We can only get better if we can hear from people.
Outstanding. Well, Tony, it was such a pleasure to have you on the Omega podcast.
Thank you so much, Kaden. It's been a pleasure.